Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here and welcome back to another Division video. And in today's video, I want to speak to you guys about all of the gear set changes coming in 1.4. That is for all 13 gear sets. Of course, the guys at Massive are working hard right now to try and fix the issues they have with the gear sets, you know, fixing some of the previously OP talents, making some of the less desirable sets more enticing, with the overall intention being to create a much broader, wider selection of gear sets that we actually want to use so that people don't just gravitate towards one or two that are exceptionally better than the others. So hopefully this should result in a much better kind of spectrum, so to speak. But either way, let's talk about the changes. So if you guys do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below, let me know your thoughts. And for the entirety of this video, anytime I'm speaking about a gear set, I will show the old perks as they currently exist in game on the left, and I will show the new perks on the right, so you can see how they have changed. So let's start with Alpha Bridge, one of my favourite gear sets. So in 1.4, your 2-piece set bonus is now plus 100% health regen, which was previously your 3-piece set bonus. You now have a new 3-piece set bonus, which is plus 5% weapon damage, and your 4-piece set bonus remains unchanged. Now do bear in mind, of course, that for all of these gear sets that we speak about, these are currently in the PTS, and the PTS is a test server, so everything is still subject to change. If some of these values don't work out or something needs to be tweaked, then it could well be that as soon as next week this video is out of date and I'll need to update it. But for the time being, this is how they exist in game. So Alpha Bridge, no kind of massive changes, so to speak, just a sort of slight shuffling, and that's fair enough. I am going to miss the 2 medkits. That is something that I did really enjoy with Alpha Bridge because I get through a lot of medkits, but alas, that is their decision. So moving over to Firecrest, this is actually a pretty good change. The new gear set, your 2-piece set bonus is now plus 3 incendiary grenades as opposed to incendiary bullets. You then have your 3-piece set bonus is plus 50% flame turret range and plus 30% flame turret damage. And the flame turret in the PTS is actually pretty good. It'll of course have a lot more utility in PvE than it would PvP, but it's definitely something that, you know, if you get a chance to try it out, I wouldn't overlook the flame turret now. And especially if you do pair it with, say, Firecrest, it can actually be quite good. On top of that, your 4-piece set bonus is, again, a pretty drastic change. You now do 15% increased damage when your target is on fire, as opposed to the previous one, where it was a case of when you kill a burning target, it grants you incendiary bullets for 10 seconds, with the idea being that you can kind of keep that fire going. Instead, it now promotes a playstyle where you set your target on fire and you then focus fire them down to deal more damage, which will actually have use in both PvE and PvP. If you're pursuing a fleeing target, you set them on fire, deal some damage to them, that's of course going to help you out. Then moving over to Sentry. Now for Sentry and Striker, you'll of course remember that in 1.3 they did have a 5-piece set bonus added to try and take some of the weight out of the strong 2 and 3-piece set bonuses and kind of push them into a 5-piece. So that's been scrapped. They're back to a 2-3-4 set. So for the sake of clarity in a diagram, I'm just going to kind of refer to the sets as they existed when they were first added, and we'll then speak about how they are now. So Sentry, your new 2-piece set bonus is plus 30% increased aiming accuracy versus the previous one, which was plus 10% headshot damage. Your 3-piece set bonus is now plus 10% damage to elites versus what it used to be, which was plus 20% damage to elites. And now your 4-piece set bonus is that headshots using semi-automatic weapons mark the enemy, increasing the damage you do by 5% for 30 seconds. Whereas prior to that, it was by 15% for 10 seconds. So what they've basically done is given it a bigger duration, but a lower damage increase. So the idea being that it's slightly more forgiving. You don't necessarily have a tight window where you have to kind of inflict that damage, but of course the damage that you do inflict is not as great as before. But it's still going to have its uses, and you can of course still only stack up to 3 marks on a target. As for Striker, your new 2-piece set bonus is plus 20% stability, and your new 3-piece set bonus is plus 10% armor damage. And as for your 4-piece set bonus, that actually remains unchanged. So you've basically lost the specific enemy armor damage you had on your previous 2-piece, and you've lost the critical hit damage you had on your 3-piece. Then if we move over to Deadeye, this one has had a kind of drastic reworking. Your 2-piece set bonus is now plus 40% initial bullet stability, which was the previous 3-piece. Your new 3-piece is the previous 2-piece, so you now have plus 20% marksman rifle critical hit damage. So they're just a kind of a swapping around, but the drastic change actually comes in the form of the 4-piece set bonus. Prior to 1.4, this set was focused around basically spamming marksman rifles from the hip. So it used to be that when you were not scoped in, your critical hit chance on marksman rifles was increased to 100%, but your headshot damage multiplier was removed. So the idea being that you just kind of spam shots into the largest part of the target, you know, the chest or something like that, and you then have guaranteed crits. However, what they've now done is retuned it so that it's actually now focused on zooming in instead. So now, when zoomed in, your marksman rifle loses the headshot damage bonus but gains 100% critical strike chance. Now, I'm not really sure I like this, to be honest, because typically if you zoom in with a marksman rifle, then you are zooming in because you want more precision or you want to get someone from far away. And if I'm zooming in, I'm going to aim for the head. But, of course, with this set on, then there's no value in aiming for the head because you're losing that headshot multiplier. So it's probably more so geared towards people that are going to try and engage from range. Maybe you'll kind of zoom in again, and then it'll be more forgiving for the fact that you might not be able to hit a headshot from a long way away. So instead you'll just spam crit shots. In that respect, it could be useful, but I don't really like the fact that it's kind of taking away what is important about a marksman rifle. So whether that will remain the same, I don't know just yet, but either way, that is the Deadeye as it currently exists. Next up with Reclaimer. Now, Reclaimer is an interesting one because in the current game, it has created some rather horrific situations in the Dark Zone. You know, people getting stun locked with various consumables. But believe it or not, the problem was not actually with the Reclaimer talent, so to speak. It was just kind of the problem with how Reclaimer was handled behind the scenes. What I basically mean by that is the 4-piece set bonus on Reclaimer is actually fine when handled correctly, but what happened before is that game effectively allowed you to buffer your cooldown so that the second you finished a consumable, you can pop another one, or alternatively you can kind of stack multiple consumables, and it just got really messy. So that set's now been fixed so that it actually works as intended, but there are still a few changes. So your 2-piece set bonus is now plus 50% consumable duration, which was your previous 3-piece. Your 3-piece is now plus 50% support station duration, whereas before your 2-piece was 100% support station healing speed. And as mentioned, your 4-piece set bonus is actually the same, so consumables and special ammo now apply to the whole group and are not consumable on use, but it also triggers the consumable cooldown and cannot start consumables that are on cooldown. So you basically have to wait for something to finish and finish cooldown, and you'll then have a much bigger window between, you know, being able to consecutively use consumables. So it should work, as mentioned, as intended, as a support set and not just a set where you can just spam incendiaries and explosives over and over. But of course, also do bear in mind they've actually changed the way that explosives and incendiaries work, so they're hopefully not going to be quite such a nightmare case in the Dark Zone. Moving over to the Tactician's Authority, your new 2-piece set bonus is plus 10% skill haste, as opposed to the previous one, which was plus 4,000 skill power. And skill haste actually works, again, as it should, so 10% is actually 10%, so it basically just means your skills recharge 10% faster. Your 3-piece set bonus is now plus 10% skill power, and your 4-piece set bonus has now changed as well. It is now every bullet that your group hits enemies with adds 0.2% skill power to your max of 30% bonus, but the bonus disappears after 10 seconds of not being updated or after 10 seconds at full power. So you can't just run around for the entire time with maxed out skill power. This will now be much more useful in things like boss fights where you're dealing, you know, a lot of damage in a short space of time. You can get a lot of use out of it, and of course then once you've used it, it will then wear off. Moving over to Blind, I'm not going to speak about this one too much because I actually put up a video specifically about this one yesterday, but Blind has now become Banshee. So Blind no longer exists. If you have any Blind pieces in your inventory, come 1.4, they will become Banshee pieces, but as a quick reminder, the Banshee 2-piece is now that you get plus 20% Dark Zone currency gained. Your Banshee 3-piece is plus 10% damage to targets out of cover. And your Banshee 4-piece is twofold. It's either if you're rogue, then all your ammo is completely refilled every 30 seconds, and damage taken from non-rogue players is reduced by 10%. Alternatively, if you're using it when you're not rogue, then damage to rogue players is increased by 10%, and currently, movement speed is increased by 20%, but they're taking that out because they're having streaming issues, so they're looking for a replacement for that right now. So again, if you want some more details on that, you actually want to see that set in action, I will link the video down below because I covered that yesterday. As for Final Measure, your new 2-piece set bonus is now plus 25% exotic damage resilience as opposed to plus 50% from before. Your new 3-piece set bonus is plus 15% protection from elites, which was the same. And your 4-piece set bonus is actually the same. So when in range of hostile grenades or mortars, it diffuses them and it adds a grenade to your inventory. It can only happen once every 15 seconds. After that, moving on to Path of the Nomad, your 2-piece set bonus is now plus 20% health on kill versus the previous plus 100% scavenging, but scavenging is being removed from the game because it is just a rubbish stat that didn't work, so that's completely gone anyway, so that has no use. The new 3-piece is that it administers a constant kind of small healing, so that it allows you to regenerate your health past the segments of a health bar. And your 4-piece set bonus, again, is that when receiving fatal damage, you are instead healed to full health, and this can occur once every 4 minutes. Predator's Mark, your 2-piece set bonus is now plus 10% reload speed, as opposed to the optimal range from before. Your 3-piece set bonus is plus 8% assault rifle damage and plus 8% SMG damage, whereas before it was assault rifle and pistol, and let's be honest, we don't really need pistol damage because you're not really going to be using it to kill people. You just tend to use it if you run out of ammo, or you just need to proc a specific skill on that gun, whatever it is, but either way, it's now SMG damage, and your 4-piece set bonus behaves fundamentally the same way. Again, hit 10 shots without switching target to make the target bleed, but instead, the bleed is for 50% of the total damage dealt, as opposed to the previous 100, and the reason for that is because in the PTS, 100% bleed, when used correctly, was actually really, really powerful to the point where it was actually, you know, overpowered, so they had to kind of adjust that. But do bear in mind that all those adjustments are in line with the PTS, in line with 1.4, and not the game that you guys are currently seeing, so don't go thinking, well, hold on a minute, they're just trying to take my bleed away from me, because the game that most of you guys are playing right now is not the game that this is built for. So that will change fundamentally. Lonestar, almost there. The 2-piece set bonus is plus 100% ammo capacity, that remains unchanged. Your 3-piece set bonus is now plus 8% LMG damage and plus 8% shotgun damage, which is different to before where it gave you a flat 1000 damage on top. It now gives you a percentage, and your 4-piece set bonus is again, when the weapon is holstered, it regains full ammo. And then finally, Hunter's Faith, your new 2-piece set bonus is plus 20% optimal range as opposed to the Marksman Rifle critical hit damage. Your 3-piece set bonus is plus 20% headshot damage as opposed to damage to elites. And as for your 4-piece, it behaves the exact same way as before, but instead of just applying to you, it applies to your team. So hitting an enemy with a bullet grants you and your team temporary protection. The further your shot, the more armor you get, and each group member's protection disappears after getting hit by one hostile bullet. And that, my friends, is pretty much it. Those are the changes as they currently exist in the 1.4 PTS. As mentioned, subject to change. These could well change as early as next week. They could be constantly updated until the point that 1.4 hits the retail client. But until then, those are the changes. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of some of those. What I'm going to be doing over the kind of course of the next few weeks is I'm going to be farming these new sets on the PTS, because do bear in mind I play primarily on Xbox One, so if I had that character in the PTS then I could just test out all these gear sets right now, but my PC character is new, so I'm farming everything as I go. So once I do get these new sets, I will be following up with new gear set reviews once I can test out the new perks, find out how they feel, find out how they work, and of course give you guys some, you know, much more detailed feedback with regards to how the changes actually work in game. But until then, this is what you need to know. So thank you very much for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.